In this session, we are going to start a new chapter, that is Anatomy of Flowering Plants. In this chapter, the first topic that we will study is plant tissues. So in anatomy, we study about the internal structures of plants and animals, and we are talking about flowering plants here, so we will study about the internal structure of plant. So we will start with the plant tissue. So first of all, let us discuss what a tissue is. So a tissue is basically a group of cells which have a common origin and perform a common function or a same function, right? So a group of cells which have a common origin and perform same function is called a tissue. So this is the definition of a tissue. Now in plants, when we talk about tissues, mainly two types of tissues are found in plants. So first one is the meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue. And second one is the permanent tissue. So these are the two main tissues found in a plant body. The meristematic tissues are those tissues which are present at those parts of the plants which are actively dividing and are responsible for the growth of the plant. So these meristematic tissues has special type of cells which are actively dividing and producing new tissues. So these cells are called meristematic cells or meristems. These cells are generally found in the regions which are growing. So they contribute to the growth of the plants. So in the plant body, the meristematic tissues can be found in the three main regions. The first region being the root and the shoot apex. Root and the shoot apex, that is the tips of the root and shoot, we will find root apical meristem. Then the other place where we can find these meristems are the axillary bud. We studied about axillary bud, that it is found in the axil of the leaf, and it can produce a branch or leaf or a flower or any part that is required by the plant. So meristems are also found here. And then in the intercalary part, and they are called intercalary meristem. Alright, so these three regions we can find the meristematic tissues or the meristems, or we can also say that these are the three types of meristems found in the plant body: the root and the shoot apical meristem, axillary bud meristem, and intercalary meristem. So the root and the shoot apical meristem are found at the root and the shoot apex. So suppose if this is the shoot and this is the root, so this portion is the apex or the tip. So here we will find these actively dividing cells or meristems. Similarly in the root apex, these meristems will be found. Alright, so these are the apical meristems, and they contribute to the growth of the plant, the vertical growth of the plant. So these will, at the apex, this cell will go on producing new cells that will increase the length of the plant. Then the other type is the axillary bud meristem. So what is axillary bud meristem? When the branches and the leaves are being formed in the plant, then some of the meristems are left behind at that place, and those meristems give rise to that axillary bud. So if you remember, when we studied about the axillary bud, so if this is the stem, and this is the leaf, then this position, this angular position is called axil, and a bud is found here which is called axillary bud, right? So this axillary bud is formed because when this leaf was being formed, or when this stem was being elongated with the help of that shoot apical meristem, then some of the meristems were left behind at this place here on the stem, and those meristem has given rise to this axillary bud. So these meristems are called axillary bud meristem, and this axillary bud can grow into a branch or a stem or a flower or any other part. Alright, so that is the second part of the meristems, and the third part is the third type is the intercalary meristem. Now intercalary meristem we will find in grasses. Intercalary meristem, these are usually found in grasses, and these meristems are present between the mature tissues. They are found between the mature tissues. So if this is a grass, then these intercalary meristems will be present, and when any herbivore will graze on this grass, so this grass will lose a portion. This will lose a portion. Let me draw it again. So suppose a herbivore has eaten this half portion of the grass. Now only this portion is left. So what happens, these intercalary meristems, they will actively divide and they will form the missing portion. They will regenerate the missing portion. So that is the main function of this intercalary meristem. They are present between the mature tissues mainly found in grasses, and they are responsible for the regeneration of the these grasses, which are usually eaten by herbivores like cows and deers. Alright, so this was about the meristematic tissue and the type of meristematic tissue. So these three types which we studied, these are called the primary meristems. The shoot and root apical meristem, axillary bud meristem and intercalary meristem, they are called primary meristems. Why are they called primary meristem? Because they are present in the plant in the early stages of the life, right? The plant is still growing. the shoot system is still growing, the root system is still growing, the axillary bud is growing, the intercalary meristems are still giving rise to those parts which are missing or eaten. So these are the early stages of the plant growth, and these meristems are present in the early stage. That's why they are called the primary meristem. Alright, now there is another type of meristem which is called secondary meristem. So let us see what is a secondary meristem. So a primary meristem is found in the early stages of the life, and the secondary meristem is found at the later stages of plant life. Later stages of plant life, they are formed from the mature tissues. Secondary meristems are formed from mature tissues of the plant. By de-differentiation. Alright, so once the tissues get specialized and they mature, then sometimes those mature tissues produces meristems or meristematic cells that forms a whole new type of cells at the later stages of the plant life, and such meristems are called secondary meristem. The other name for these meristems are lateral meristems. Now why are they called lateral meristems? Because they are responsible for the lateral growth of the plant. This lateral growth is also called secondary growth. So if you have seen the dicots, secondary growth is seen in dicots, and the dicots have trees and plants which are quite long, and their stem is quite large and big and thick. The girth is quite large. So if this is the stem is like this. The width or the girth is very big. Right? So why is this width greater in these dicots? It is because of the secondary growth which occurs only in the dicots. And this type of growth which increases the girth or width of the plant and trees, these are called, this type of growth is called secondary or lateral growth, and the meristems which are responsible for this growth are called lateral meristems or the secondary meristems. Alright, and they are formed from the mature tissues at later stages of the plant. I hope this is clear. The first type of meristem which we studied was the primary meristem. Why was it called primary? Because they were present at the primary stage or the early stages of the plant growth. They help in the formation of that or growth of that young plant and its parts. Primary meristem was of three types: root and shoot apical meristem, axillary bud meristem, and intercalary meristem. Now we're talking about the other type, which is the secondary meristem. How is it different from the primary meristem? It occurs at the later stages and formed from the mature tissues and mainly responsible for the secondary growth or lateral growth of the plant. The primary meristem was responsible for the vertical growth of the plant, right? When the plant is at the early stage, then the plant grows like this, vertically. Also, the root grows vertically inside the soil like this. So these vertical growths are caused by primary meristem. Vertical growth by primary meristem. Now, once this vertical growth is completed and the tissues are mature in dicots, then the secondary growth starts. How the secondary growth occurs? Instead of the vertical growth, the plant starts to grow in the width or the girth, like this, right? So after secondary growth, the stem would look somewhat like this. It will grow in its width, and the root will also be a bit thick, like this. So this increase in width or girth, this is because of the secondary meristem. And that is why it is called secondary growth, mainly seen in dicots. Alright, so if we talk about the secondary meristems, then there are two types of secondary meristems which are found. The first one is the vascular cambium, and the second one is the cork cambium. So what is vascular cambium and cork cambium? It will be clear when we study about the vascular bundles and secondary growth in dicot plants, dicot roots and shoot. Alright, for now you just have to remember that vascular cambium and cork cambium are example of secondary meristems. Alright, so I hope the plant tissue is clear to you. Let me summarize it one more time. If we talk about the plant tissues, then plant tissues are basically of two types. This type is based on the ability of the cells to divide. Alright, so the meristematic tissues are those tissues which have the ability to divide continuously and form new cells, while the permanent tissues are those tissues which lose the ability to divide after some time, and they get mature and specialized to perform a specific function. We are not discussing about the permanent tissue here. We are discussing about the meristematic tissue, the first type or the one type of tissue first. So in meristematic tissues, the cells responsible for the growth or which are actively dividing are called meristematic cells or meristems. They are of three types: root and shoot apical meristem, axillary bud meristem and intercalary meristem. Root and shoot apical meristem, found at the root and shoot apex, helps in the primary growth of the plant, vertical height. Then axillary bud meristem is found at the axillary bud. It can give rise to a branch or a leaf or flower or any other part. Intercalary meristem is mainly seen in the grasses, which can help in the regeneration of the missing parts. This was the first type of meristematic tissue, which is called the primary meristem. Then the second type is the secondary meristem, which is found at the later stages and mainly responsible for the secondary growth or growth in the girth or width of the plant. Examples of secondary meristems are vascular cambium and cork cambium. Alright, so this was about the meristematic tissue. In the next lecture, we will continue with the permanent tissue. That's all for this session. Thank you so much.